medical and scientific research programs with the hammer of
I know.
cleaning up your response to anti-Semitism on campus. So in my mind, that boiled down to sort of a confrontation between protecting Jewish kids on campuses and continuing scientific and medical research for the sake of humanity. And I struggled with this, and I am still struggling with this. I don't think that these specifically the three elite institutions in the target, Harvard, Columbia, and Penn, should cow to what some may view as extortion uh, at the risk of losing all these research programs. So that led me to the next question, which is what can colleges and universities do to disrupt the anti-Semitic activities on their campuses? And this is a big, complicated question. I do not have the answer, but I wanted to ask all of you if what when you if you kind of create these scales of protecting Jewish kids on one side and and keeping this vital research on the other, what's what deserves greater consideration? Um, I'm not so sure. Steve, you have your hand up. Go. Oh, you're muted.
I think protecting the kids is more important. The funding, number one, the government can never run its own labs. Under Kennedy, they're not going to be doing any of this research anyway. He's going to cut it all between him and Doge. I think that the ultra left, in describing everything that's been happening anti-Semitically as free speech, is 100% wrong legally and constitutionally. And we need people to stand up. And Trump's not going to be president forever. I don't even think his own party supports. And at some point, they will rebel. What I find even more disturbing than that is major law firms caving. They are setting a horrible example for the population, for the profession. They make everybody just look greedy and money hungry because, God forbid, a partner can't make less than $7.5 million a year. And I thought Ellen Cohn has been extremely articulate, and her remarks are terrific. And the legal profession, I'm embarrassed to have been a part of it. That's just not an ethical way to act. And I just think we have to focus on ethics and hope the money sorts itself out in time.
Meryl, you had your hand up.
Yeah. First of all, the cancer thing, I read that last week, knowing so many people that have all different kinds of cancer that needs research, especially breast cancer, but other kinds as well. It's very disturbing that all of a sudden this is something that they choose to do. The other thing is about the campuses and the anti-Semitism. I was at the CCR convention last week as the co-chair of the Friends of the CCR. So
Remind us what CCR is.
the CCR is the Central Conference of American Rabbis.
Oh, okay.
So they had their annual convention last week, and I got to go as co-chair of the Friends of the CCR, which is like a development group. And one of the men on our committee is the board president of a Hillel on one of the major campuses. And he's made some interesting discussions at some of our meetings. One that basically that on the campus that they're at, and I'm not going to mention it because, it's just not, it's everywhere. The campus that they're on, they own their building. Hillel owns their building, but they're on the campus property. And you have to have like a key card or something to get into the Hillel part of the building. But the campus will not stop the anti-Semitism that goes on outside of the building. And it's disturbing that, I came home thinking, I've got grandchildren who are eventually going to go to college. And they've experienced some anti-Semitism at their young ages in their schools here in Scottsdale. And it's disturbing, yet I think that the biggest problem is I'm not sure there's anything we can really do. I mean, we can stand there and fight all we want, or we need to. And then the other thing that's bothering me, and I just noticed an email from our temple, and we're having a schmooze conversation later on, that we're having a security briefing because now they've cut the funding, the grant funding, which our temple here is a part of, for the security issues, which involve mostly anti-Semitism problems. So now the people from the Phoenix Police Department and Scottsdale combined are having security meetings at temples and churches who have this grant money and are losing their grant money because of the latest, whatever you want to call it. And they want us to pick what we feel we can do. Well, with my handicaps, I certainly can't go running through a parking lot chasing somebody that's there causing problem. But there's 4 different parts. One of them is a visual thing, like you can report something that you see to somebody. I can certainly do that. But all of this combined, I mean, the whole grant thing is a chunk of the same kind of thing with the anti-Semitism. You're taking away grant money that's protecting not just synagogues, but churches as well. And probably our private schools that are Jewish private schools. And that's, I sit here and I just shake my head in disbelief, because what is going to happen? Is some way to stop all this?
Like this?
And you stop grant money? That's not going to save the country any money. Anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to put myself on silent now.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think it will.
and listen.
Okay. Sylvia, did you want to say something?
I think that Trump using anti-Semitism to cut grant funding to Columbia is a red herring. I'm not denying that there's anti-Semitism. I'm not there, so I haven't seen it personally, but I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised. By punishing the school because he doesn't like whatever it is he doesn't like, which is probably everything in Columbia, is not related to anti-Semitism. He's doing what he can do because he can, and he's pegging it on something that he thinks will be popular with his born-again Christian base. He's protecting the Jews. And while that should be done, this is not the real reason, and it's not the way to do it.
So there was a story that circulated last week or the week before that about 25 years ago, Columbia wanted to expand its campus.
Yes.
And they had their eye on a building that Trump owned. And Trump said, you can have the building for $400 million. And Columbia said, that's too much. We're going to go in a different direction. Well, guess how much money he's threatening to withhold from Columbia? It's $400 million. Now, is that connected? Geez, I don't know, but it sure looks interesting to me. And for a guy who's sort of known for retribution and vindictiveness, I don't know. I tend to agree with you that these efforts to withhold funds are separate and apart from his claim to want to protect young Jews from anti-Semitism. I think these are 2 entirely different issues, and they have to be dealt with in 2 entirely different ways. That's my sort of left-leaning position, but I might be wrong, but I see no evidence to the contrary. Who else had a thought here? Harv, go ahead.
Well, I had a discussion a while ago with the chancellor of the University of Wisconsin, and she, I think, handled the situation a lot better and didn't get her university in a bind like the three that are in a bind now, because all she did was enforce the rules. And if you look at the three universities, did they enforce their own rules? I mean, they gave Trump a big opening. You got to admit, whether it's a red herring or not, it's an opening. And it's something that these universities have to come to grips with. The 400 million, I would also say follow the money and see if the 400 million gets spent someplace else. And if it doesn't, then it is definitely a red herring that he was just wants to cut the research. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Anybody we haven't heard from yet? Benjamin, you always have a thought.
Uh, God, I apologize. I think I was unmuted. Um, I think I'm gonna close my door, but I think it's complicated. I remember as a young kid when the ACLU were defending the Nazis in Skokie, Illinois, for their freedom to speak about
Yeah,
Nazism. And, liberal background, lifelong Democrat. I had trouble with that. And, I look back at the Holocaust and a lot of things were happening for many years in Nazi Germany. Before the Holocaust, the pauperization, the isolation, the moving to camps, the murders, etc. And where was the outcry? Where were the good guys speaking up? Yeah, maybe this Germany's an independent country; they can do what they want, but maybe it is right to um, not allow this propagation of hate. We know that the Palestinian groups are very well organized and they're being funded by, whether it's the big oil money, what have you. And, maybe we just have to stand up. And I hate to say it, maybe Trump is right that it should be stopped because it isn't right. Hate speech doesn't belong in our country and it doesn't belong in our universities. So yes, I believe in freedom of speech, but not freedom of hate speech.
So, who is ultimate if there's anti-Semitism on campuses? Who is ultimately responsible for deflecting it or ending it? I mean, is it law enforcement who make their interpretation of the First Amendment? Is it the university administrators who have to say this is disruptive to our educational mission? I think all these things have been tried. Nothing seems to quell it, just like nothing quells
I think
it.
that's a bit of a red herring. When I was at a university, we protested against some anti-war things and such, but it wasn't hate speech. It was anti-war speech. I don't think that's hate speech. So I don't think we have to overthink it. If you get up there on a podium and you say, Jews should be killed or from the river to the sea, and I think we know what that means. Do we really need to think about whether that's hate speech or not? Is it that complicated?
Well, do you think that I don't know if this has happened yet, would the ACLU jump in and defend uh, people who espouse these points of view? I mean, to me, that seems to be one measure of whether on which side of the First Amendment those words are.
If you're in Germany today, you cannot speak of Nazism. It's against the law.
Well, I think the difference, your analogy with Germany in the 30s is that they killed people. I mean, they had guns and ammunition, and we haven't gotten to that point yet. I hope we never do, but that to me is always in the back of my mind about when you compare what we're experiencing with what happened back in Germany.
Right. Death camps are a little bit different, but the hatred and the vitriol that is out there
No,
today, how far of a step is it to somebody being injured or hurt or killed.
Well, people have been injured and hurt. And I mean, part of the problem is this isn't just hate speech. We have, we have conduct, we have incitement to riot, we have violation of laws about time and place of gathering, we have university codes of ethics. There are a million things that we know what's going on that deserves going these people and making universities enforce rules because it's not just hate speech. They can say they hate the Jews all they want, and I'll support them. But you don't get to say, oh, you were there on January 6th, Trump's got your back, go kill a few Jews. Those aren't the same thing. And we have a lot of things that tend toward the latter, which take this out of the realm of free speech. And I am tired of seeing this analyzed as if it were nothing but a free speech issue. And legally, that's not true. Constitutionally, it's not true. And by the way, even the Constitution, as Oliver Wendell Holmes has said, not prohibit limitations on free speech. And that applies to every single civil right. There can be limitations, gun control, everything. And people seem to ignore, 2-century-old constitutional law and try to, it's the problem of sound bites, misleading headlines. Even if an article's correct, the headline is wrong. I mean, today I saw a headline that said the Democrats are suing to stop Trump from preventing illegal aliens from voting or some such thing, which isn't what the lawsuit is at all. But that's the headline, and that's all they're going to take away from it.
So, so is it okay though that if law enforcement gets involved to intercede because it's beyond First Amendment rights, it's hate speech and it has no place here? Do those people deserve any kind of due process, or do they relinquish that by virtue of the fact they are violating our tradition, our laws and traditions?
Another oversimplified issue. It's not due process means many things, and it's fact dependent, circumstance dependent. People who are here on visas that can be revoked do not have the same free speech rights as U.S. citizens or even permanent residents with green cards. You have to know the facts of the situation, and in fact, speech can be limited if you're here on a student visa, and rightfully so. You shouldn't. Why should we give education to someone whose goal is to come here, be divisive, and attack part of the student body? So you have to look at the facts and circumstances of every case, and it's been oversimplified in everything I read. And there is always due process, but there are different types of due process and different levels of due process.
Because there are several cases ongoing right now. I don't know the legalities of each one and what the rights are attached to each visa situation, but I do know that a lot of people are screaming about giving people some forum to defend themselves. I'm not defending them. I'm just raising questions that I've read.
There's a broad array of things. I mean, I think this Turkish student who was sequestered away is a very different case than the people who were deported to Venezuela. I mean, all kinds of things, but they're all different. And you have to look at the facts, and none of them fit within a label of free speech. That you can't just say due process as if that means the same thing in all cases. And these issues are legally and constitutionally complicated. And I think too often, too many people are just trying to jumble them all together and have their banner, free speech. And everybody gets it, and that's all this is.
So ultimately, when an issue arises on campus, who's ultimately responsible to intercede? Should it be the university itself, Do we need to call in law enforcement? Do we?
It's university policy.
Okay.
And normally universities handle it themselves until they feel they need to bring in the police. But there is nothing that in any of these places that prohibit the police from being the enforcer.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in? Penina, go ahead. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
No, you're okay now.
Okay. You are all talking about speech, speech, speech. Wasn't only Germany. The whole Europe was involved. What happened with the Vichy government? What happened even in everywhere? It spread it all over Europe.
So
That's because they were given the opportunity and the freedom to do so, and nobody acted. On the contrary, what did they have to gain by it? They took their homes, they took their belongings, they took their hair, they took their, you name it, and they did it. So it's when you start with a speech, it's not just a speech. It grows and it shows them that they are allowed. And once they start, it becomes already physical. They prohibit the kids to enter the classes. They prevent the kids from entering the building, the classes, attending classes. My daughter is going to UCLA at least twice a week to clean up the windows from all the hates that they paint on the windows. And she's trying to talk to them to explain that what they're doing, it's not just not right. And she sees it physically. And there is a group of mothers that do it in New York, clean up the windows so the kids that enter the building are not going to face right away a hateful environment. So, they call themselves Mecca from the Maccabees, and the parents here are doing it for the students who are in Los Angeles, and in New York, parents are doing it from kids who come from all over the world and they don't have their parents there.
Okay.
And this is something that's being gone every day. And they were talking about trying to bake bread and to break bread. They should maybe sit together and talk. It doesn't work that way. They think that to die for their cause, it's a virtue. They're going to go to heaven and they're going to meet 7 virgins and they're going to be awarded. To the hate and the killing, it's a part of a whole mentality and belief and religion. This
Okay,
is not so easy as you
Excuse
think.
me. May I say something too?
And it's very bad that people should justify anything that goes on there that has to do with hate.
Okay.
Anything, whether it's speech,
Okay.
whether it's action, whether it's thought even. You need to get to the root of it. And they don't come from blank space.
That was going to be my next point. Helen, was that you speaking?
Yes, it was.
Go ahead.
All right. I'm going back to, in my opinion, everybody's talking about this and that. I am talking about anti-Semitism, how it can be, in my opinion, combated.
Oh, that was not going to be my next question.
My opinion is that this should start in grade school, where they teach children about history, about what happened in the world, not only to the Jews, but to other religions too, and to open up the minds for the children of everything that has happened from the beginning towards today. And that's my opinion, how we can combat anti-Semitism. It starts growing from the beginning, from kindergarten on, and eventually by the time the young people get to colleges, their minds are made up, and young people know what they want, and they know everything. Unfortunately, they do not know past history of the world. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No.
To talk so much.
Helen, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. about teaching history. I'm a big fan of history. I think we're running into a kind of a collision course, however, when we have a president now who wants to redesign our museums and teaching institutions to eliminate those parts of our history that would don't necessarily shine America on a bright light. That includes Black history, Brown history, Jewish history. I think there's a lot of other people's histories that don't necessarily comport with the way that certain groups in our country now want to teach history. I'm all for what you recommended, and my question, my overall question was going to be, how do we break this cycle, which is probably a question that's been asked for 2,000 years, ever since Jews began. I mean, I think it's a Jewish hatred is a learned experience. I don't think the war in Gaza has helped, and I'm not ascribing blame or responsibility in either direction. I'm just saying it hasn't helped. It's inflamed the situation. And I wonder if all of a sudden we had a peace deal in Israel with the Palestinians, would somehow anti-Semitism abate a little bit on college campuses? Sylvia, you're shaking your head viscerally no. So is Steve. Too ingrained?
No,
It was all, it's always been there. I just think starting with Trump's first term, he really made everybody okay with expressing their hatred and even acting on it. Anti-Semitism never went away. I think for a long time, we at least had people who, in public and in their dealings, were not to act on such base gut feeling so that we could have a more civil society, and the racism and xenophobia and everything else of Trump's first administration, and starting with Charlottesville, was just a green light to the Klan and the skinheads and the alt-right and everybody else. And it just brought it out, and everybody is very comfortable with it now.
Let's see, who haven't we heard from? Brad, you have anything you want to add?
No.
No, okay. That's fair. Melanie, you have any thoughts? You're on mute.
Yes, it was really hard for me to concentrate because I have so many problems with technology. So the one thing, no, I can't be specific about the topics. I'm still reeling with lots of anxiety and all kinds of feelings I don't want to even name.
Okay.
You know, I guess like everybody else, I'm assuming that everyone else goes through hell every freaking day. I do. You know, seeing and hearing the news, exposing myself to such horrid people and thoughts and desires for their fellow man. I would like to do something, but I have felt physically not as robust as I did when I was younger. You know, I felt so strong, and now I don't.
Join the club.
Yeah, I don't feel I should bring this 74-year-old body to the streets, but I want to. I really want to. So,
that's true.
I don't know what to do. But anyway, so carry on. I in this moment I can't contribute, but thank you.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
just the fact you're here, you're contributing.
Yeah, thank you.
Sylvia, go ahead.
I think that anti-Semitism and anti-Black and anti-Muslim and anti-everything else has always
And
been
anti-Jewish. Why are
Thank
we
you.
leaving this out?
Thank you.
Wait,
Penina, Penina, she's speaking, and let her make her point.
Yeah.
I think that all of us grew up with it, whether it was overt or covert or only occasionally overt. What happened, as Steve said, in the first Trump administration was it became okay to say the hateful things that we were all taught you don't say about other types of people. And it hasn't gone away. It's not going to go away because it gives the crazies power. It gives them a sense of accomplishing something. I'm not sure what. I don't know how you get rid of it. Helen said that you start teaching it in school. I personally didn't learn history till I was in high school. And certainly a lot of things that I should have learned, I did not learn when I was in school, but I learned by reading myself, by being interested in history. The current curriculum, as I understand it, is totally useless. I talked to my great niece and great nephew about what they're studying, and I'm astonished at how not educational to me it is. And they're bright kids, and they would learn if they were taught. It's been whitewashed, it's been sanitized, it's been made so nobody should get upset about what they're being taught. And that does a great disservice to everybody in the education system. And it's not going to get better.
Yeah,
Trump wants to get rid of anything that doesn't make rich white men look good.
That's not true. Oh my God.
That reminds me of, to your point, some years ago, I was invited to the Museum of Tolerance to write a story about a program that they had enacted where they brought kids from Orange County who were arrested for anti-Semitic behavior, whether it was vandalism or whatever, or just some expression of anti-Jewishness. So what they did was they created this program where they had a Holocaust survivor sit in a chair in a quiet room with all these kids in chairs to talk to him. And the first thing he said when the program started was, "Why do you want to kill my granddaughter?" And a dialogue began, and he talked of his story. And at the end of it, these kids, they had no idea what happened. They had no idea what the Holocaust was, no sense of it whatsoever. And I remember interviewing one kid who was almost in tears afterwards because he had no idea what his thoughts were connected to. And I think even if it was just that one kid who changed as a consequence of this particular event, that was a success story. But I think, all of you who have expressed this need to educate kids starting at a younger age may be one step, maybe not a panacea, but one step to interceding to some degree to break this notion that Jews are terrible and they're the problems that hurt the world. All right, Panina, go ahead.
Okay, I think he's very not only caring, he's worried because he has a son who is going to college now, and he has a daughter to turn to Judaism, conservative Judaism.
Who
And
are you
he's got
talking about?
I'm talking about Trump. He's got
Trump.
grandchildren who are Jewish. He's got a daughter who is Jewish. He's got now a boy that's going to be in college. He's in college first year this year, a son. Okay, so he's a brother to a Jewish girl, a Jewish woman. So what I'm trying to tell you that you all thinking that it's political or it's whatever. I don't care if it would have, his name is Trump or his name is Wiesel or his name is, I don't care who. I know that how I would feel, and I know I could so understand what he did because he's protecting his own family, and nobody ever mentioned it. No one. Okay? So think about it. He's got a son who is college age. He's in college first year now. He's got a daughter who became Jewish, conservative with a hat and all that stuff. So maybe he's worried about his own family. Think about that.
No.
Okay.
Not a chance.
No. I
agree.
think you may be in the minority opinion.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah.
I would be.
Well, everybody cares about their own family,
Right.
but I
So
think
maybe that's a factor. At
Well-
least one factor. Okay?
maybe.
Okay.
They do also have.
Not, I'd say less than 0%.
Okay. What about 50%? Would be fair enough? I
Less
take
than 0.
50%. Okay.
Less than 0. I think he's anti-Semitic,
Oh, he
and he
is.
puts up with his family, and he puts on a show, and yet he loves David Dukes, and he loves the Klan, and he loves all the alt-rights who kiss his ass, and he loves it, and he says so. And there weren't good people on both sides.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that part of it.
He's a
I'm looking for the good reasons, not all
That's
the
fine. That's fine. You can look for the good
He's
reasons.
The rebel
motivated by
oh,
nothing
we're
good.
talking about Judaism now. Okay.
No,
We have a discussion that's organized.
Say again, Herb.
Can't we have a discussion and let the persons talk when they're talking and not interrupt by other people?
Well, that's the goal. Sometimes
Okay.
it's like herding cats in some cases.
Trump doesn't give a damn about anti-Semitism or whatnot. He wants to do what he's doing is continuing with his attack of wokeness, whatever that means. Okay, and so he's saying that the education from Columbia, Harvard, and whatnot that's what's promoting this wokeness stuff that opposes his candidacy and his ideas and his and everything. Okay, and
I saw that Netanyahu had appointed a new leader of Shin Bet, and then a day later he unappointed him. And why? Because I guess somebody in his administration discovered that this guy had written a column, an opinion piece critical of Trump years ago, and they were told that's not your guy. Find somebody else. Now I don't know what that means, but it's just one of those things that just kind of makes you think about what's important. Brad, you have your hand up?
Yeah, since you got on the topic of Israel, I'd like to pursue that because, that's something I really miss in these dialogues
I'm
is
not
the
around.
insights into what's going on in Israel. But something that caught my attention this week was how the far right of France, the party of Marine Le Pen, and her toady was welcomed in Israel by the Netanyahu government. This is Le Pen, whose father was a Holocaust denier. They've tried to give themselves to gain some respectability in France by throwing off their cloak of anti-Semitism, although it still pervades the party, and instead they have an anti-Muslim and anti-Arab program. So, what do you make of this far-right Israeli government welcoming a far-right Holocaust denier family and movement? Or a movement that has its origins in Holocaust denial in Israel. I mean, it's uh, how are we supposed to interpret what's going on in Israel?
I have one question for you. I missed that story. I didn't see it this week. Was that visit, or was Netanyahu's welcoming of her before or after the French court found her
No,
guilty of the
it wasn't her. It was her Bardella,
yeah,
her
her prime minister.
her yeah, the leader of her
Yeah.
movement in parliament.
Was that before she was convicted or after? Do you know?
This was before she was
Okay,
convicted.
so the only sense I would make out of that is that Netanyahu is looking for any ally he can find on the right to help prosecute his war. And I just think, he sees them as a friend, a right wing conservative friend. I mean, I don't know. it would shock me that he's embracing these people with this pronounced past, but I think politically maybe he sees some good in that. I'm not sure. And to your point about, I'm sorry, I'm not a rabbi and I don't have a lot of connections in Israel, so I'm a little short on deep insight into Israel goings on. I'll try to be more attuned to that in 2 weeks from today.
Well, I don't mean to belabor that point, but we get tons and tons of information about US politics. I don't really need to come to this group to hear about
Okay.
US
Well,
politics,
okay, that's
but
good.
I don't know really what's going on in Israel. And that was something that Rabbi Davids brought to this group.
Well,
And I really wish that we could, and I'm not expecting you to become an expert
Rabbi,
on Israeli politics, but if we could learn something about what's going on in Israel, I think that would really be, I mean, that would be useful to me in coming to these sessions.
point taken. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Panina. Nobody else has their hand up.
I'm just going to remind you guys that after when Israel was declared independent, a lot of countries that before were once the ones that what
Your
is echo?
your sound is a little funky.
Okay, better now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think Germany was the one who sold us. We needed lead, we needed materials like iron and stuff to build our own army. Any country that would have helped us with any kind of gesture or contribution or help, even though we did pay them or we didn't pay them, some countries felt very guilty. And actually, Germany was the first one that actually sold us literally materials to make our own ammunition and the ammunition, and because they felt that what they did, and I would say that even though they don't talk about it, a lot of other businesses and countries that are not necessarily based in Israel are helping, because there is a shame attached to any countries who participated with the Holocaust, which is basically all Europe. So I am not by choice. It was imposed on them because the Nazis literally took all over. And they are getting help and they are not advertising it. And therefore they need it. And if any country will help them to get it, they're going to make a peace with them, and they're going to make the treaties because they need it. And there isn't many other countries in the whole world who are Jewish. So who you do business with? So that's that. So it will explain why they do still business with those countries, and they bring the ministers and the prime ministers and they meet with them because everybody needs each other. Israel has a lot to contribute when it has to do. The Uzi was invented by Israel. Okay, the Tavor was invented by Israel. Israel has a lot of things that the world is using, and nobody is mentioning that it came from Israel.
Yeah,
So
I don't think too
business
many
is
people
business,
get.
and if you need the other countries to make you feel strong or make you strong, you're going to do it, just like they do it here in the United States.
Yeah.
When you have to be in cahoots somewhere where you know that it will benefit you in some way, you're going to do it. And people are doing it. And we have no choice because we are the only Jewish country in the world. So who do you do business with? This is it.
Okay.
Think about it.
All right. Last point. The Israelis mounted another incursion into Gaza. Is this going to help or hurt? Do you think this is going to preclude another hostage deal, or what?
There is no more hostages. The hostages are dead.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
Oh, no, it's not.
No,
No, it's
no, I
not.
mean it's not going to change how anybody reacts to anything.
Okay.
Okay. From your mouth to God's ears, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it seems like every time they get tiptoe up to a possible deal, then something happens and it all kind of falls apart. So
Right, because they don't have any more, except bodies. They have nobody else to deal with, to bargain
I don't
with.
know if that's true, but
Okay, you'll see.
okay. Yeah, if they keep going, then they'll all be dead. Okay. I am gonna call it a day. I got to get out of here. Brad, I take your point. I'll try to be more conversant on Israel when we reconvene. I hope you come back. I thank you all for joining today, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay.
Safe travels, Michael.
Thank you very much. See you all soon.
Safe
Bye-bye.
travels to everybody.
Bye
Safe
bye.
travels. Come
Thank
healthy
you.
back.
Yeah, and happy
Thank you. Be
happy
safe.
Passover.
Happy
Tonight is
Yeah,
Passover.
the
happy
women stay
Passover.
there.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Be strong. Hmm.